From Serena Williams' iconic meltdown at the US Open to Nicolas Kicker losing out because of winning a match, here are tennis's most famous cheating scandals, where players really did cross a line. In spite of his name pointing to a career in football, Nicolas Kicker was actually a pro tennis player, but not a totally honest one. The Argentine had been set to play Giovanni Lipenti at the Challenger tournament, happening in Colombia at the time. At the time of the tournament, Kicker had been struggling financially and was just waiting for his next big break. Well, it didn't come as prize money from a match, but as a promised sum by a match fixer who contacted the young player. To make $15,000 of instant money, all Kicker had to do was win the first set against Lipenti and lose the next two. Sounds easy enough, right? Especially considering Lipenti had floored our Argentinian back in Sao Paulo. Well, he won the first set, but for the next two, he just couldn't seem to lose. No matter how lackluster his game or how bored he looked, Kicker ended up having to miss 4 consecutive returns to lose. Well, that raised a few antennas for sure, along with the fact that Kicker's match was the one bet on the most out of any in that tournament, at nearly £700,000. Before long, the Tennis Integrity Unit was knocking on his door for an investigation that lasted about 3 years. At the end of it, 22-year-old Kicker was found guilty of match fixing and could not compete in professional tennis ever again. A dismal end for such a promising player. Serena Williams is the newfound queen of the tennis industry, but not without a few meltdowns along the way. The really infamous one was back in 2018, when Serena Williams was slapped with a coaching violation for receiving tips from her coach, Patrick Mouratoglou, who was sitting on the sidelines. The International Tennis Federation clearly states that players must not receive coaching while on the court, but Mama Smash had seen Mouratoglou hold his hands apart to indicate she should play closer to the baseline. Well, the umpire, Carlos Ramos, saw the little tip too, and immediately handed Serena the violation, as players are responsible for their entourage's actions. It was like wave after wave of violations after that. Serena was carded for smashing her racket in frustration and calling the umpire a thief. By the end, she'd lost the whole match against Naomi Osaka like this. In a press conference later, her coach did admit he had been coaching, but didn't really see the problem, considering the same umpire had let these violations go for Rafael Nadal and his coach. It was even brought up how this rule was only selectively followed. For example, Kyrgios was given a pass because the guy coaching him mid-game wasn't technically his coach. Williams might have thrown a bit of a tantrum, but made some valid points here. Like any sport, tennis also has its fair share of bad eggs. So let's go to an oldie, Nick Kyrgios. Back in 2016, during the Shanghai Masters, our Australian tennis star had a major meltdown on the court. His second round at the tournament against German player Misha Zverev started off shaky to say the least. Kyrgios seemed completely uninterested in the match and was practically handing Zverev points on a silver platter. At one point, he didn't even wait for Zverev's serve to land and just walked off to the water station. Match forgotten. This was really bizarre, considering he'd won the first round by a really good margin and was on an uptick in his career as well. He was ranked number 14 the world over by 2016, and it was only smooth sailing from then on, if only his reputation hadn't tanked here. Fans started heckling his performance, and he got into a verbal spat with a spectator, and was completely unapologetic in his press conference later, saying that he didn't owe the fans anything, and they have no idea what he'd been going through. This prompted the ATP to fine the Australian nearly $41,000 for conduct contrary to the integrity of the game. I mean, he's always had a penchant for unpredictable behavior on and off the court, but this really took the cake. Maria Sharapova and her 2016 doping scandal is next on the list of the tennis world's worst proudest moments. The 6'2" Siberian player is a monster on the tennis court, but it came to light in 2016 where exactly she got her powers from. Sharapova failed a drug test and was found to be taking meldonium, a drug that's been banned by the World Anti-Doping Agency. She was the first ever tennis star to fail a drug doping test. She admitted in a press conference that she'd been taking it nearly all her career, and it had greatly enhanced her performance. When questioned about her intentions, the Siberian was incredibly apologetic, saying that it was a recently banned substance, and she had not known about the updated ban. She apologized to her fans, and was super remorseful that she'd let the whole tennis industry down. While it is true that meldonium was a recently banned substance, it still doesn't explain why she hadn't been updated. The Olympics, which she'd been enrolled for at that time, made it a special point to issue a warning to all its athletes about the new banned drugs, and Sharapova herself was supposed to be working with doctors whose entire job was to keep the player in the loop about these things. Once the highest paid female athlete in the sport, Sharapova lost out on her sponsorship deals with Nike and Tag Heuer, and was banned from competing for 15 months. And the only reason she's been able to make a comeback is because of her loyal fan base. The US Open just seems to be a tournament that attracts tantrum-throwing players like moths to a flame. Joining that list of names is none other than Fabio Fognini, whose volatility on the court is a thing of legend. He was losing, and badly, to the Italian player Stefano Travaglia, and he was not taking it well. The Swedish umpire, Luis Angel, became the butt of his frustration, and Fabio threw out a lot of choice obscenities at her. He landed himself with 3 fines, for a grand total of $96,000. The Grand Slam board voted to suspend him from that year's US Open, and 2 of the next Grand Slam tournaments. Well, Fabio was less than happy about all this, and expressed himself on a French tennis website, Ubi Tennis, sarcastically calling the board moralist when it suits them. According to analysts, Fognini actually got off lightly, cause their policies say that he could have been fined over $250,000 and been banned from all Grand Slams indefinitely. If we turn back the clock a little, we can see Victoria Azarenka's 2013 Australian Open match where she was accused of cheating. She'd been going up against Sloane Stephens at Melbourne. She'd actually taken a 9-minute-long break mid-game that analysts called a calculated move to throw off her opponent, in an effort to cheat the game while still remaining within the legalities of the system. It was called a devious and cunning little maneuver, but the player has been so affected by these rumors all through her career and has been outrunning them ever since. Victoria has recently spoken out and said that tennis players are just regular human beings and cannot be written into a hero and villain story with black and white rules. Azarenka has actually developed a lot of anxiety surrounding the whole situation, and for the past 10 years or so, it's cropped up time and again at matches, and she's really struggled in her game plays. A statement from the player herself shocked fans when she said it's one of the worst things that she's ever gone through in her professional career. From Nick Kyrgios's petulant tantrum at the 2016 Masters to Fabio Fognini spewing filth at a US Open umpire, these were tennis's most famous cheating scandals, where players really did cross a line.